Hi, Jeannie Gaffigan. I'm so grateful that you're on my show. I had your husband on not too long ago, and he spoke so lovely about you. He's a horrible storyteller, as you know, so I am going to have you tell the story.
Okay.
Let me plug the book first. When Life Gives You Pears, The Healing Power of Family, Faith, and Funny People. What a story you have to tell. So go ahead and let people know.
I know, it's just so crazy. So, anyway, and excuse my voice, I just had a type 1 thyroplasty, which is like one of the many crazy surgeries that
That's all.
But actually it's kind of cool to be like, oh, it's just an outpatient surgery, because it's like so much better than what it could have been. So, I mean, that's kind of the way that I'm kind of looking at life now. And also, speaking of grateful, I'm just grateful that you had me on your show too today. I'm just so happy to see you. So I'm basically a crazy person. I have 5 kids. I'm married to Jeannie Gaffigan, which is essentially like having 6 kids. And, I'm doing a lot. I was the executive producer of our TV show. I co-write and produce his shows. I direct the specials. I, am involved in the schools. It's just, I was running pretty full on my life.
Yeah.
Didn't have a lot of extra free time, little, me time at all.
No.
So I was in the doctor's office with my 5 kids, and as I'm wont to do, because I don't like making 5 different separate appointments. That's insane. So I wait till there's 5 in a row, and I take that block. And I normally, for efficiency's sake, because I have ages 7 through 15. At the time that this of this story, I had ages 4 through 12. So I'm in the little exam room, and basically she does do little things one at a time, with the older kids. But at a certain point, she needs to sign all these forms. So each kid has a stack of forms for school, camp, and I have to organize them in my office. So it's if you've ever gone into a production trailer and seen the start work paperwork for an entire cast, that's how kind of my doctor's office looks when I'm there. So she starts going through the stamping and the all the different things that they have to check off to get into camp and school, and is speaking to me, and I keep turning my head towards her, and she's like, "What's wrong with your ear?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, I can't hear out of it very well." And she was like, "Well, how long has that been happening?" And I said, months, I don't know, I can't, it's getting worse, but I have no idea why. So she looks at my ear and she's like, "I don't see anything wrong in your ear. I want you to go yourself to forget about all these appointments for kids. You need to go see an ENT, because you don't just lose the hearing in your ear." And she's like, "Are you sick?" And I'm like, "Well, I have bad allergy headaches all the time. And, I get dehydrated. Sometimes I have, dizzy spells, but it's all, I'm not taking care of myself. And I will, when they all graduate from high school, I'll, take a spa day."
Because it's easy to blame your schedule.
Right. And blame not drinking enough water. I'm the type that fills up a big reusable bottle of water and just carries it around with me all day like a weight. And I'm just oh, it takes too much trouble to unscrew the cap.
Right. Or forget to drink it. Yeah.
I forget to drink it. Exactly. So, I chronicle this kind of crazy journey in my book, but eventually the ENT cannot find anything wrong with my ear. So he wants to take a deeper look, because he's like, maybe you have a neuroma. There's little things that can happen on the inner ear that you can only see with an MRI. So I go to the MRI, and that's when they discovered that I have a massive brain tumor and I have 3 days to live. So that was kind of not on my schedule, on my to-do list that day. So I had to kind of restructure things a bit.
So the reason why you didn't actually or have any red flags was because you were able to easily justify it, having a busy schedule, because you sound like me, because I have allergies. I'm constantly having sometimes an allergy headache, but so you can easily say it's those things.
Yes, it's compartmentalizing. It's putting all the symptoms in different boxes and explaining them away. So there's 2 things going on here. One is an actual medical thing, and the other thing is a spiritual and emotional and psychological thing that I think that women who do too much do, is that you either go down the rabbit hole with the hypochondria and look up Dr. Google and be like, "Oh, I have every form of cancer ever invented," and then you realize how silly you're being, so you just still don't follow up. So you either go down that hole and then think, well, obviously I can't have all these things, so I'm not even going to go to the doctor. Or you just, like I did, and also, like, it's very easy because when you say, oh, my God, I have the worst headache, and people are like, oh, the allergies are really, pollen is so bad today. Totally. And then you're like, okay, they have it too, so I don't want to be weak, or whatever it is. And then the other thing is that I am just realizing now, even after I wrote the book, is that I probably thought that I was pregnant because aside from the hearing loss, I've been talking about these symptoms with a lot of people, and they're like, I have all the symptoms too, but I'm pregnant. I'm like, well, actually, that's fine because it's normal to feel dizzy, to feel, fatigued, totally. To have headaches, like when the hormones come in,
Exactly.
And so I was like, my youngest was 4 at the time. It was kind of like in my life, like it was kind of like life. So I was like, well, maybe, and because the first time I went for the MRI, I didn't actually get the MRI because there was a question that said, could you be pregnant? I was like, I guess I could be pregnant. I never really thought of that. And so I went to the nurse. It's kind of a funny story in the book. And I was like, so if there's a question if I should be pregnant, should I not get an MRI? If I am pregnant, I'm probably not pregnant. But I could be, like, there's a chance, but it's not really 100%, but it's not really like 0%. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they were like, just don't get the MRI. And I was like, okay. So I was like, then I put it off longer. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, no.
So, but at the same time, it's like, God works in mysterious ways. Because if I had been pregnant or if I had a new baby and gotten diagnosed with this, like, what do you do? It's like you can't go through all this stuff when you have a new baby or pregnancy.
No.
So things worked out. But so then after that, that's when, the story really starts.
When the doctor comes in and says, you have a pear-sized tumor, brain tumor, first thought?
Well, it's what that moment was a much later, even though when I say much later, I'm talking like 3 days later, because this whole thing happened within like 5 days. It was like MRI, next day, just limbo of I never heard tumor. I heard mass in my brain. No appointments, no doctors. I tried to get appointments, and they're like, "Are you a new patient?" And I'm like, I'm. What are random people calling up and trying to sneak their way into a neurosurgery office?
Right.
So then I actually reached out to a childhood friend of mine who is a neurologist, and I said, "Listen, I am told I have mass in the brain. The ENT can't do anything because it's not in the ear, nose, or throat. So I'm trying to make appointments with neurosurgeons. They have appointments next month. They can only see the report, but I have this scan that I can't read on my computer. Can you look at my scan?" Because there's another thing that I talk about in the book is like, if I had not advocated for myself and gone and not just been like, okay, I'll wait, I would be dead. So I called my friend. Jim ran to FedEx, sent him the scan. The next morning he texted me. He's like, you need to get to the OR. Like, you need to get an operating room, like, now. He texted me a picture of this, like, thing that looked like an inverted pear, like, lodged in my spine, in my brainstem. And it was surreal. That was the moment that you're talking about, when my friend texted me, and I saw this, and I'm like, wait, that's in my head? Like, how am I walking around? Like, I had no idea. So
I saw a picture of it, too. I watched some of your interviews and was like, oh my God.
I mean, seeing something like that, it's surreal. And I was like, and so aside from then of course I went to that doctor that you saw, Dr. Betterson, who's like a god. He's like a demigod among us mere mortals. Like, the fact that he cuts people's brains open and like takes huge things out and saves all those little tiny hair-shaped nerves that would have, like, every single one of them would have been, he really thought that I was not going to have any facial muscles on one side. Like, he was like, there's no way we could save that nerve, because that's right. He's like, I'm really concerned about that one. And I was kind of like, am I going to live? Because, like, essentially I'll be a head in a jar as long as I can raise my kids. And if I have a paralyzed face, I don't care, because I already have a husband and I'm not like in the market to get a new one.
Exactly.
So basically the other thing is that medically, and this is what is really difficult to understand, because in that office that day, he put all the pieces together of the puzzle. Like, do you know that movie, The Usual Suspects, where at the end it all makes sense and everyone's like, wait a minute, it was him, and he got away. It was like that moment when they were like, dizzy spells, headaches, can you stand on one foot? And it was like I was getting a DUI. Like where they give you the tests when you're drinking and driving or whatever. Yep. That's like a neurosurgery test. And I couldn't touch my nose. It was like, who's doing that? Like, how would I know that I couldn't touch my nose from over here,
Wow.
And so, but also that made it really clear that I had compartmentalized all these things, and viewed together, I was really sick. Then the other thing is, medically, is that when he saw the size of it, I was like, is it brain cancer? That was the first thing I asked. I was like, is it do I have cancer? Because then it spreads all over your body. And he said, we will not know until the tissue comes back from the lab, the pathology comes back. But he said, looking at the size of it, I would say it is 80% chance of not being cancer. And Jim was like, how can you know that? And he's like, because cancer grows so rapidly that if she had something that grew rapidly that was that size in her head, we would not be having this conversation right now, because his physician's assistant described it like an elephant on a clothesline. Like if you put an elephant on a clothesline, which is the cancer, and it's that much pressure, the clothesline's going to snap. But over years, if you put little weighted things on the clothesline one by one, and then you put the elephant on at the end, like nothing happens. So he really believed that to grow something that significant of a size in my brain, that it had to have been insidiously growing for years, because all the little speech and swallow and movement and all the things that are compromised right there in the brainstem, that is the command center between your brain and your body, that's where it was. And there was only like a teeny bit of room left for me to have these signals. It was like one sneeze and I was like done. But over the years, my little nerves had found their ways. And, because I even though I say I didn't take any care of myself, I did eat relatively healthy. In spite of my husband, I did get acupuncture. Like I did have a consciousness of health in my life. And I believe that was also what saved me as well.
I mean, this story is so unbelievable. I'm going to plug the book again because we've got a good book buying audience and I want them to get this. When Life Gives You Pears, The Healing Power of Family, Faith, and Funny People. Can you please tell me, because this is of course, a mother's worst nightmare. This is everyone's worst nightmare of having to leave your kids or having your kids leave you. I don't think there's anything worse.
No.
You have 5 children.
Yes.
You are the executive producer, as your husband says, of your life, your kids' life, your marriage, everything. You're the executive producer of everything. So when you get this diagnosis, you don't know if you're going to survive. How do you find the strength to stay positive and not go down a rabbit hole of I'm going to die?
Well, I think that because of them, I think that how I outline this in the book is that I had the, sort of positive spin on this, that it was so quick, because I didn't have a month to worry about it. There are people out there that they get a diagnosis, then they for the next 6 months, you're going to be going through all these treatments. I had basically an emergency surgery. So I did have 2 days between, where I could just spend time with my family and think about these things. But more of that was about, telling my kids, telling my parents, being with them, experiencing them, smelling them, just being with them, but not making my will or trying to figure out how life was going to work. What I did was, and this was really smart idea. This was my physician assistant who has 2 kids, and she was like, it was Easter weekend. So I got the MRI on the Tuesday before Easter. And I'm Catholic, so this is how I kind of put everything in sense. And on Wednesday, I was in limbo because I didn't know. And then Thursday was Holy Thursday. That's when I met my neurosurgeon, and I have this whole harrowing story of how I got into neurosurgery with no doctor. And I walked in, and with no one knew my name or anything. I just barged in. And I was like, we're doing this. And then Friday, Good Friday, was my photo shoot day where I was all day in a photo shoot with MRIs and CT scans and paparazzi everywhere taking pictures of my innards. And then I had Holy Saturday and Easter Sunday off to be with my family. And then I went to the hospital on Monday. And I had embolization, and then I had the craniotomy on Tuesday. So that's the time frame that we're looking at here. So I didn't have time to be like, what is the world going to be like without me? I was just dealing with, I have to get this out of my head. Like, I have to do it for these people. I'm not ready to go, and it was just like, you can't run away from it. No. It's like when you hear about people who are like, see their kid get, trapped in a car, and all of a sudden they just lift up the car and throw it.
Superhuman strength.
You just get that. So where the chronicle in the book really hit home for me, and why I felt compelled to tell the story, because that story is a very short story, was when I came out of the surgery, which, by the way, was a miraculous success. It was like it could not have gone better. I mean, if you can see, I didn't get any paralysis at all.
None.
Except for my left vocal cord. That's the only thing that's gone. And I'm already having surgeries to correct it. So it's like amazing. And it's outpatient. But what happened is the day after the surgery, because the cranial nerves control speech and swallow, you can hear that my speech is compromised and my swallow is still compromised, but it got all mixed up in there. So I aspirated, which is when you swallow like saliva into your lungs. Right. And so when I woke up, I had a serious double lung strep pneumonia infection, and I was in the ICU with a breathing tube and all this stuff. So I had like that one little waking moment of success where everyone was smiling and giving thumbs up and being like, we got the tumor and you're alive and you're not brain damaged. And I was like, yay. And then I woke up and it was like, beep, 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 beep. Where am I? And why can't I see my kids? So during that period of time, when things were going rapidly downhill and they couldn't resolve the pneumonia, and Jim was like canceling shows and being like, I'm going to give up my career, be a, as he calls it, a mediocre single father of 5 kids. Right. And my family was coming in. I mean, it was like really serious. Yeah, it was like last serious. Rites. It was really a big deal. That was the real trial for me, because I both went to a dark negative place that was like godless, and then I also really found God in that moment, because I am a doer. I define myself by what I do, by my product, and at that time I was just the taker. I was taking in I couldn't move, I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk, I couldn't see my kids, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. Yeah. And people, I kind of joke about it, but like people, pay a lot of money to go to India to, go on a mountain in a hut and fast and isolate. And I got it free. But I went into this kind of inner, facing myself and like facing who I was and what I wanted and why I wanted to live and what I could endure, because not eating or drinking, like especially water, like not being able to being so thirsty, and that IV is giving you what you need to live, but not being able to even, I could
satisfy your quench.
Yeah, they had this sponge that they would clean my teeth with, but they had to put a sucker in my mouth so no liquid would go in my throat, because I could aspirate and get even sicker. So,
can I ask you
yes.
when you said you were godless? Because you always have those moments of why God, why?
I don't think I ever went to why God, but I was like, there were moments when I got so caught up in myself. Like I wasn't, like God wasn't even, like I wasn't even addressing God. I was just addressing the moment of being, the reality of what is going on. And so it wasn't, as soon as I recognized there was God, everything was okay. I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason for this. And I'm either going like to you, and I'm going to see people that I believed. I was like, I have to believe. If I have faith, I can't be afraid of this, because I'm going to see you, and I'm going to see like my baby that died. I'm going to see my grandmas. I'm going to say, I started being really positive, but I really felt like I was like, listen, I'm seeing that I've been robbing my family of their independence. I'm doing everything for everyone. Now I'm so worried that everything's falling apart because I was always like, oh no, don't worry, I'll do it. I'll handle it. Don't worry. You don't have to know the teachers' names or anything like that. And I set up a situation that was unmanageable for me to be removed from. And I think everyone should look at their lives and not like in a nihilistic kind of way, like, oh, what if we all die tomorrow? But kind of, kind of like what am I doing right now? Do I have any room in my life? Am I teaching my children to like take care of themselves in any way? Do they know how to use a phone in a hotel room? Because mine didn't. Like, I'm just having a new perspective. But in there, I didn't know if I was getting out. But I knew the truth that if I did get out, that I needed to spend a little bit more time in meaning and thinking about things on a moment-to-moment basis rather than like a product-oriented basis. And I say it more articulately in the book because, I kind of babble when I talk.
You're saying it. No, I think you're saying it very well, because I think a lot of us mothers do, and fathers, I don't want to exclude them because there's some great dads that do everything also, but we take on everything. And sometimes it's easier just to do it ourselves than to stop and teach a little human being. It's
always easier.
Right? And that's where we get caught up, and I'm guilty of it myself. And I've had those moments of like, oh my God, shit, he doesn't know how to do anything. Like if I don't teach him this, I'm nuts. Like what if something happens to me? That's going to be my biggest fear, that he doesn't know how to survive without me. So I forced him to get into driving lessons, even though he was crying and didn't want to take driving lessons, but I'm like, I'm not going to live forever. Trust me, I'd rather have you Uber for the rest of your fucking life, but I'm not going to have you do that. You have to drive. And listening to your story, I just kept going like, oh my God, because I think about that all the time. And I want to know, though, if you had a knowing, did you have a knowing that you were going to make it?
Yes,
inner?
I did.
Talk about that.
Okay. So and that was the God thing. Because when I was not with God, I would like fall asleep and I would like dream. Because you only sleep for like 5 minutes in the ICU. And then you wake up and you're like, is it tomorrow? And they're like, no, it's like 5 minutes ago. You had there's no time passed at all. And you're like, what? So I would like have these nightmares about being on this boat in the middle of nowhere where there was just like death and bramble all around me. It was terrifying.
Oh my God.
And I was just terrified because it was like death. It was like I smelled death and it was so close. And then I just reached out to like God and I was like, help me. And then I saw this like light and this hope. It was just so amazing. And also I was isolated. And I really want to talk about this too, because I feel like this was a real faith moment for me. And I know it's like not PC to talk about, but whatever. This is how it happened for me. Like I wanted like my mom, right? I wanted my mom with me because, it's like, I just feel like I felt like kind of a baby, like I was kind of a fetus. Yeah. And I just wanted my mom, and I was alone. I mean, there was like nurses running around like saving other people's lives, but it was not like people weren't like allowed to like be like touching me and stuff. It was like, right. And so in the Catholic world, there's a mom in heaven. It's Mary, the Blessed Mother, the Mother of Jesus, and she's all of our mother. And I was like, Mary, help me, mommy, and I was like kind of like, and then I saw this like, this light in her, like, I had these visions and it was like so beautiful. And I was like, I felt like God was like, you're going to live, you're going to make it through this. And when you come out of this, which you will, your team is going to be stronger. Everyone's going to be okay. And you're going to start living your life with more meaning. And I really feel like, it wasn't like a voice of a, I'm God,
right.
Or it's like something, but it was like this inner wisdom, this inner voice that was inside of me that spoke to me and told me that I couldn't give up. I had to fight. I had these kids. And but one of the things that I also am really grateful for this experience, aside from giving me this whole new perspective on life, which, by the way, I still battle because I'll still be like in the middle of something and be like, I hate people. And it'd be like, oh no, wait a minute, I love people. So it's not like it's not like black and white. It's like
you didn't wake up as Mother Teresa. You're a work in progress.
It's a constant it's constantly setting boundaries with myself and be like, oh yeah, I'm a horrible person. I forgot. But one of the things that that happened, because having not eating for so long or drinking, and it's like a day-to-day thing, because when you're sick, you're just like, I'm just gonna have some chicken soup and go in the covers and feel better, and you can't do that. The family separation, the separation from my children, was so painful for me emotionally. So there was this physical pain of being, starving and thirsty, and because the quality of life, I mean, even though you're being kept alive by this yellow gunk that they're putting up your nose into and so you're not dying of starvation, but there's no quality in that. It's like, right. But there's people that exist like that right now. They're still there in the ICU. So I have so much gratitude. But also, the separation from the children was so emotionally crippling that it was very, very much like the starvation and the thirst emotionally, that it got so mixed up in my brain that I was, I write in the book that I was afraid when I actually did see my kids, I'd actually eat one of them, because I was so mixed up. I'm like, I'm hungry. Do I want to kiss you? Right. So, but at the same time, I know I'm trying to be funny, but even though this is really painful.
No, you are. Yeah.
But the thing is that like when you're really hungry and you can almost imagine phantom smells of like, oh, is that an apple pie baking? Totally. It's like I would have these phantom smells of like, did I just smell Patrick's head walk by? Like your kids each have, even though sometimes they're like, oh, go wash your hair, you smell like dirt in the park. That's an amazing smell. It's like the best smell when you can't smell it. So I feel like now that I've been given the second chance, I just want like everyone to just like grab their kid and smell their head, even if they're like super dirty.
You don't understand. I want to go pick up my son from school right now and pull him out and just hug him and smell him.
Just get right in there and smell his head.
I mean,
because you shouldn't have to go through this to realize that.
Right. That's the message.
That's the message.
You should not have to go through this in order to feel like that.
And when you drink a sip of water and you swallow that water and it goes down your throat and you never ever think about how amazing it is, just be like, thank you. Thank you that I can swallow this water.
I absolutely love you. Honestly.
I love you too.
I cried 4 times in your interview. I mean, it's such a powerful message. I love the way you tell it. And I love that you are sharing it. I mean, to go through something like this and not, when it can affect so many other moms' lives, to stop and have more meaning in your life without having to go through it. You don't need to do that in order to have the results that you have. Stop and smell your kid's fucking hair. Excuse my French. I do swear a lot.
That's just fine with me.
How is Jim at this point? I mean,
Jim is great. I mean, he really came through in this situation, because you have to understand that, and I'm not blaming him, because I do take responsibility in the book for creating this man-child. But I did do everything. He did not know the teachers' names. I mean, he was like, wait, what? I mean, we joke, like he didn't know all the kids' names. Like it's like we joke about it, but also I got a kick out of doing everything. I was like, no. He'd be like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm going to go in the kitchen and make a sandwich. I'm like, no, you're going to make a mess. I'll make you a sandwich. I'll do it. I would much rather know where I'm going to find like the crumbs and all that. And the smear on the counter. Like I have my way. I'll do it. So I was like, oh, I do everything for him. But I was really doing it for me in a way, my ego.
Yep.
So he not having me, it was really good for him for a while. Like he learned, and also like he's the type of person where I'm like, I have a big family gathering with like, I'm one of 9 children. So when my family gets together, it's like he goes and hides. He's like, he picks up his laptop. He's like, well, I got to go check my email. And he's just gone. God. So, and I'm like, oh, I handled the whole thing. He's like, you invited 30 people over to our apartment. So, but then when this happened, like 30 people did have to come over to our apartment. And he was like, okay, you're staying here. Okay, you're going to go and we're going to order pizzas for everyone. And then all this food came over from my fabulous community, both schools and my church, and people are bringing lasagnas, and someone had to organize it, and I wasn't there. I label everything and it was like a hot mess, but it was like he was handling the situation where he likes to go in the room and like, shut the door and do his own. Like, I've allowed him to, act like he's a single guy. That's what, he was single until he was 30 or something. He was a full-on bachelor, like he full-on, and I just kind of made it easier for him by, being the cleaning lady, the cook, the child rearer.
Of course. And now is he stepping up again to do...
He's, okay. You can't go back. I like doing it too. I want to say I like being the caregiver, and I like the way that I, make eggs and clean the kitchen better than he does. But he does, like, he is way more involved with the teachers. They all know him, now. And he just has a deeper understanding of me. Like, it's not easy. It's really hard. And I think there was, there's a kind of a sense when I was first with Jim and had one baby, I was on tour with him all the time. And my baby was, Mari, my first baby, was on like every dirty green room couch across the country of every improv comedy club. Where I like baby sleeping in the green room. But when I had Jack, it was too much. It was like I was nursing. I had like two boobs going at once. And I couldn't go. So I started doing a lot more producing and writing from remote locations. And he would, sometimes say things, well, I'm out there working. And I'm like, you're on like business class flights, sleeping, getting waited on. You're going to like the, peninsula.
Right.
And getting room service. So please, you're not working. I'm working. So there was a little bit of that kind of like not understanding. And now, like, we both understand each other so much better. Like, it's like our marriage grew, our gratitude for each other grew, because a lot of the other things is when I came home, like in the hospital, I won't lie, he wasn't funny at all. He was like, harried, and he was like how I was. Like, I was probably never, like, I had all this joy and had all these kids and everything like that, but I was kind of always cranky. I was kind of always cranky before. I was always like, oh, there's another thing. Oh, my God, this is, now we have a mouse? Oh, great, or whatever. So that was kind of the way I lived. But now, and that's how he was in the hospital. But when I got home, even though I was still on tubes and machines and all that stuff, I was out of the hospital, and they don't let you go if you're going down. They let you go when you're going up. And they want to get you out because they're like, you're about to get a staph infection, so you got to leave. I mean, it's gross at the hospital. There's sick people there. It's literally a building full of like disgusting sick people, which I was one of. And then when you're a little bit better, they're like, okay, go home for home care. And so when I was home, Jim all of a sudden turned back into funny Jim. And I was like, I thought going home I was going to get better and be able to have like chicken soup and like all my kids in the bed. And it was like still machines and nurses and like not sleeping and food tubes and not being able to walk. And it was kind of a downer because it was kind of like I got stood up at the altar. I was like, finally, I'm here. And then I was
I'm
like,
ready to be done with this.
Right. And I wasn't done. But he was so happy that I was home, and that it meant that I was not going to die, because they don't let you go if you're going downhill, that he started to get me out of the dumps. Because, it was a journey. It wasn't like, God spoke to me, everything was better, and then I was Mother Teresa. Like you said, it was like a constant battle. And sometimes it still is, but it's much easier now. But like the food tube thing, I went from a machine to getting a peg tube inserted, which is a hose that comes out of your stomach, which is like, it's more invasive than the nasal gastric tube that you're on a machine for, and it's like you can get off the machine and get a syringe of like formula like pumped into you, so it's more of like than a constant stream. It's like more of like, a few times a day you do this, so it's not like this like constant feeling of feeling empty or sick and turning on and off a machine. It was more freeing. I wasn't tethered to this like string with this gunk that you could taste in your nose. It's horrible. But I was still like, this is my eating now. Now I'm eating through a tube in my stomach. And Jim was so funny. He did this, he literally made it into a cooking show and put it on YouTube. And he thought it was so funny that it was called a peg tube, and because he's like, I'm going to peg my wife on YouTube today. And then you would have to like pour this formula into like a cocktail shaker and put water in it. And he was like Tom Cruise, like in Cocktail. He was like, this is how you shake it up. And you know him, he's like so funny. And I was like, just do the pegging. I'm starving. And then he'd have guests on the show. It's like literally it's on his YouTube channel. It's called Feeding Frenzy. Like, please go check it out. It's called Feeding Frenzy, where he is feeding me through a tube. And then he'd have guests on, and he'd be like, today, would you like to peg my wife? And then they would do the peg. And also you have to release a valve. And then he would criticize them and be like, no, you're horrible at this. He's like, see. And then like if he wanted to make it like more romantic, he'd light a candle. And he'd be like, this is how. He's like, if you want to peg your wife in a romantic way. And then he'd also be like, today we're having chickpeas. You know, he'd like tell the ingredients and he'd be like, yum, 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 yum. I mean, it was like, and how can you be depressed?
You can't.
You can't.
I mean, laughter is such a great form of medicine, isn't it?
Yeah.
I could talk to you forever. I want to come over and sit down and talk to you even more, even though that's not possible. That's me and my imagination. I have to let you go, but man, you're incredible. You're an incredible woman.
Thank you. So are you.
I mean, honestly, I'm blown away by your strength, about your messaging, and I'm so grateful for you being here, literally.
And I'm grateful that you had me here.
I know. Will you come back anytime?
Okay, and we're sending you one of these. It's a pear that represents what's not in my brain anymore, and it's a squeezy stress toy.
Oh, that's genius.
Yeah, so you can give one to your son. We'll send her two. You got
Please,
her too?
because my son, he has one in school that he needs to have, and I just lost it. So I definitely need it.
It's so cute too, right? It's like so toxic green, and it's like all squishy. It is a stress reliever. You're so
awesome. You're doing such good things in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jenny McCarthy Show. Oh!